Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Active Church at Home. My name is Joe.
My name is Jess, and we are so excited that you are watching with us today.
Totally. We have a great service for you planned, and I can't wait for what Pastor Mike has to say as we finish off our series, Predecide. But hey, if it's your first time here, you're like, wait, we're finishing a series today? Don't worry, we got you. We got all that stuff on our YouTube account. It's so great. So many of our past messages, so many helpful and hopeful content that you can engage with, some worship videos for you, some interviews, some conversations that we had together. So make sure you check that out and hit that subscribe button because we want to tell a better story with you.
Yeah, our online community is growing so fast. We have so much fun over on our Instagram. You can always check out our stories and see what's happening on Sunday mornings if you missed it. But also YouTube, Facebook, all the places. Come see us, connect with us, let us know what's going on. We want to hear your story, but also tell what's going on here at Active. Yeah,
let's help you with the first step today though. So if it's your first time, text welcome to the number on the screen. And we'd love to send you an Amazon gift card or maybe even a Starbucks gift card just to say thanks for joining us. We have some church news, some things that are happening around our campus that I can't wait for. If you haven't joined us on campus yet, 9 a.m., 10:45 every single Sunday, we'd love to see you. But first things first, we got an interest meeting coming up for our upcoming trip to the Ninos De Baja orphanage in Baja, Mexico. The orphanage is such a fantastic place where better stories are being told, where kids who have not necessarily chosen to be there are experiencing a new life and a new story. And we have the privilege of taking a team down every few months, and I want you to be a part of that team. So if you're looking to be a change maker, see what's happening down there, and be a part of providing hope in the country of Mexico, I want to invite you to be a part of this interest meeting on September 11th. We're going November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but the interest meeting is on September 11th. It's going to be after service, so it'll be about 15 minutes. I want to invite you to join us then as we talk about what it looks like for you to be a part of this next upcoming trip.
And of course, September is literally here, coming up soon.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
September 1st is our young adults gathering. I'm so excited. We just did a whole escape room.
Yeah,
it was so fun.
That's so cool.
You might have missed that one, but don't miss this one. We're gonna hang out, worship together, drink some good coffee, and have some awesome conversations. This is a perfect opportunity for you to get connected into a great community that really just loves to do life together. So we want to see you here September 1st at 6:30 as we just gather together and have an awesome time.
Yeah, being a young adult can be scary because it feels like every decision is so final. Like, what school do I go to? What do I do with the rest of my life? What do I do after high school? Am I making the right decisions? Am I dating the right person? What I love is that our young adult space is such a real and raw place, and it's growing, and we want you to be a part of that. So make sure you come check it out on September 1st. And finally, starting on September 12th, we are going to be launching our Connection Group season. I love our Connection Groups because life is so much better together. So if you haven't signed up for a Connection Group or you're looking for more information, you can go on our website, activechurches.com/groups22, and you can find out more about how you can join a life-changing group. There's so many different ones. One for women, some for men, some for both, some for families. And so if you're looking for anything, I'm sure we have something for you. And the best part is we know that you're going to leave better with others around you. So I can't wait for that. Launching on September 12th is our next Connection Group season. Yeah,
we are headed into the last part of the series for Predecide. But before we do that, we are going to get into a time of worship, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love to worship. So do us a favor, if you are watching online, turn up the volume. If you're on your couch, maybe grab your coffee, stand up a little bit, and let's have some fun together as we worship.
So great, Jesus, in all things. I've seen a glimpse of your heart, a billion years. Still I'll be singing. How can I praise you enough? How can I praise you enough? You are the Lord. Shining all
Some of the best choices and some of the better stories that I've told in life happened when I chose to pre-decide. When I made a decision before I have to make a decision. When I made a decision about who I'm going to be and how I'm going to live before I showed up in the minutes and moments of life. And that's what we've been discussing at Active Church over the last few weeks. And if you're joining us for the first time, my name is Mike. I serve as the lead pastor. And this idea of choosing to pre-decide could be a game changer for you. It's actually the most healthy and holy way forward. Paul, who writes a lot of the New Testament, put it this way in the letter of Ephesians. He said, "Be very careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity." Wisdom is choosing beforehand who it is that you want to be, who it is that God has created you to be, and then living like that, no matter the situation, no matter the circumstances. And we want to live that way. We want to pre-decide so that we can tell better stories and make better choices. And over the last few weeks, we've been inviting you to pre-decide. And today I want to invite you to do something that isn't just personal, but to do something that we do together as a community. Today I want to invite you to choose to pre-decide about what kind of church we want to be. Now, to be clear, I am not talking about our preferences. Because often for Christians, if you're a Christian, this is for you. We will spend a lot of time talking about song choice, talking about how we should teach God's word, talking about maybe what we should wear or when we should show up. There's a lot of conversations we've had over the years in churches about things that are really just not that important. They're important, but maybe not as important as what we're going to talk about today. Often we will prioritize what we prefer. But what I want to invite you into today is to make a decision about how you and I, how we collectively can live with purpose, on purpose, as Active Church. That we wouldn't choose, hey, we like this and we don't like that. But that you and I would decide, what can we do together to move in the rhythm of the kingdom of God, to express the values of the kingdom of God, to tell the story of Jesus. Today I want to talk about the habits that we will participate in collectively, that we will do on purpose. And friends, habits are the behaviors that close the gap between who you are and who you want to be. Your habits, my habits, they reveal our commitments. And the reason why we need to talk about our habits is because our habits are things that we do. And we understand as the people of God that talking about it is fun. But it's the doing that actually matters. We don't want to just talk about it and then that's it. We want to be about it. We want to be about the story of Jesus. We want to see the hope of Jesus change our world and change the world. So what do we want to be about is really this question today that we're asking. It's really what the decision is that we're invited to make today. We're going to pre-decide what kind of church we want to be, what kind of people of God we want to be. How do we want to live? What's the rhythm that we're going to move in together? And we could have a lot of decisions to make. We could make a lot of choices. We could have a lot of opinions. But I really think it's important for us to look back at those that came before us, to see how the men and women of Jesus, who followed Jesus, how they chose to live after the resurrection of Jesus. Because friends, as you know and as I know, they changed the world. And perhaps there were some things that they decided to do that we could adopt and adapt for our time. And perhaps if we get this right, we could change the world again. What kind of church do we really want to be? I want to take you to the letter called Acts in the Bible. We're going to be in Acts chapter 2, starting in verse 42. So if you do have a Bible or you have access to the Bible app, I want to invite you to turn there. Now, let me set the stage for you. Acts is written by a man named Luke. He wrote the Gospel of Luke, and then the sequel is the letter of Acts. Luke is all about Jesus, and then Acts is all about what the people of Jesus did after his resurrection. And all of what he wrote was what he found out. He investigated this story. This is based upon what happened. It's historically accurate. And Jesus changed his life, and he saw Jesus change the lives of those that he was around. And he drops these really incredible words about the first church, about the people of God that helped them to change the world, the actions that they participated in, the decisions that they made. And I want to read through it, I want to tease it out, and then I want to explain it. And then at the end of our time, I want to invite you to pre-decide about what kind of church you and I, an active church, will be. Acts chapter 2, verse 42 begins this way. They, the first church, the first Christians, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer. Everyone was filled with many awe and wonder, and they saw the signs that the apostles participated in and they accomplished. Verse 44, all the believers were together and they had everything in common. They sold property and they had possessions to give to anyone that had a need. And every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts, and they broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. They were praising God, and they were enjoying the favor of the people, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. That's how they changed the world. They just told the story of Jesus, and it was attractive, it was inspiring, it was irresistible. And there were habits that they participated in, and these habits that the first church participated in, that is what allowed them to get the story of Jesus to you and the story of Jesus to me. They wanted people to know Jesus and follow Jesus because it changed their worlds, and they wanted to change the world. And that is inspiring for us as Active Church, because that's why we exist, friends. Active exists to help people to meet Jesus and to learn to follow Jesus. And so we can look back at those first Christians and we can see what they did and perhaps adopt and adapt what they did in our world today. There were 4 specific habits that I see in those verses that we just read that the first church, the first Christians participated in. I see the routines that they followed. I see the narratives that they repeated. I see the language they used and the actions that they would participate in, that they would take. And I want to work through each of them, and then perhaps you and I can pre-decide that that's how we're going to live in our world today. First, let me take you back to what Luke says about this group. He says that every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. The first habit was what their daily routine was. And their daily routine incorporated 3 specific actions. They chose to be present, they chose to be generous, and they chose to be grateful. Let's talk about what it means to be present. Like, they would show up. They would show up in every minute and every moment. They would show up because they wanted to be together. And this is so important for them, but it's also important for us, because isn't it true that it's easy for us to let the rhythms of life get in the way of showing up? Often when we get really busy in life, we will prioritize our regularly scheduled lives over what could be deemed as a radical way to live. Like, we choose regular a lot. But when we follow Jesus, we're invited into this radical lifestyle. And friends, radical things happen when you show up. You already know this, because many of you, after each service on a Sunday at our Yucaipa location at Active, will come to me or to one of our team, and you'll say some kind of phrase, some kind of words. It sounds like this: today was exactly what I needed. Felt like you were talking directly to me. And the reason why that happened is because you showed up. You decided that you weren't going to allow your regularly scheduled life to get in the way of the radical work of God. You decided to show up. A few months ago, I went to Dutch Brothers in town to pick up a coffee and a chai for my wife and myself. I'm a chai guy, I'm fancy that way. And I took it home, and when I got home, I had my chai and I had the coffee, and there were 3 of us there, my wife and me, and then I didn't realize my oldest daughter was home. So when I came home without a drink for her, she was upset, rightly so, right? And I said, I didn't know that you were home. And she goes, well, could we drive back and you could get me a drink? And I said, well, listen, if you are the chauffeur, I will ride with you and buy you a drink. So we drive back over to Dutch Bros, have a great conversation. We get her drink. And as we're getting ready to pull away, the same barista that gave me the drinks when I was there about 15 minutes ago, was the same person that was giving Abby her drink. And then she said to Abby, as we're getting ready to pull away, she said, could I speak to your dad for just a moment? And she said, sure. So I leaned forward, not knowing what this conversation would be about. And she said, I just want you to know how thankful I am for Active Church. She hadn't been here for very long and doesn't show up weekly because of her work schedule and school schedule. But friends, the words that she shared about the impact that God has had in her life through you was so remarkable. Like, I could feel her emotion. I don't know her story. I don't even know her name. But I remember her face, and I remember the powerful words that were coming out of her mouth as she spoke about what happened on the Sundays that she showed up at Active, on the Sundays that she decided to be present. And something remarkable changed in her. I have some new friends here at Active. They have been a part of this church for a little over a year. They chose to get baptized and they've trusted in Jesus, and it's been a beautiful story, and it's been so fun to get to know them. Friends, they have rearranged their vacation around weekends to make sure that they're here at Active on a Sunday because, in their words, they don't want to miss out. If they're not here, they feel like they've missed out. And I feel the same way. There is power in showing up. There is power in being present. Often, when life gets messy, we will prioritize the messiness over what God could potentially be doing in us. We could prioritize the messiness over the meaningful. It's why you should show up. When you're hurting, you should show up. When you're struggling, you should show up. When you're doubting, you should show up. When you're not sure, you should show up. When you're feeling ashamed or embarrassed, you should show up. When you're guilty or convicted, you should show up. The writer of Hebrews invites us into that. They wrote this, let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. That word spur in the Greek language literally means to incite a riot in the hearts of men and women. Do you have somebody in your life that does that for you? For our team, it's Pastor Joe. He is the one that incites a riot in our hearts. He's got joy, he's got passion, he's got excitement, and he fires our team up. It's why we show up, and it's why we enjoy showing up. Even if our mood or our situation or our feelings might be hard or heavy, we choose to show up. And the writer of Hebrews says, do not give up meeting together, as some of you are in the habit of doing. But encourage one another all the more as you see the day approaching. The day approaching, what he's talking about here is Jesus returning and coming to get you and coming to get me. Now, I want to be clear about something. What I'm not saying is that you have to go to church in order to be a Christian. I am not saying that, and the writer of Hebrews is not saying that. What I am saying is that when you show up, there are radical things that are on the other side of that decision. Following Jesus provides you with a seat at God's table, a place in God's family, a space to try to figure it out with God and with God's people. You should show up. That first church, they were present, they showed up, and perhaps that's part of our choice to predecide, that we're going to show up. And when we show up, it influences what we do with our hands. Luke says that they gathered to break bread and they were eating together. And this tells the story that what they had, they didn't keep close to their hearts. They didn't keep their hands close. They didn't close them up, but they realized that they have to keep them open because it allows their heart to be open. Friends, when your hands are open, your heart will be open. Here's how Luke described it. He said they sold property and possessions and they gave to anyone that had need. Later on, he said there were no needy persons among them. No needy persons. And from time to time, they would sell land that they owned and they would leave the money at the apostles' feet. And they would use that money and distribute that money to anybody that had need. When you're present, it helps you to be aware of the needs of those around you. When you choose to show up, it opens your eyes. It gives you great knowledge of where other people are at and how you can join them and journey with them and walk with them and support them and help meet their needs. Friends, this is why we talk often about generosity at Active, specifically the tithe, because when we practice the tithe, we're opening our hands, and when our hands are open, it keeps our hearts open. One, to the work of God, and two, to the work that God wants to do in us and through us in the lives of those around us. Open hands reveal an open heart. And at Active, when we give, it first changes us, and then it changes them. And so this first church, they were present and they were generous. And when they were present and generous, it caused them to live a life of gratitude. Their life of gratitude is what helped them to make it through each and every moment. Luke says they had glad and sincere hearts because they were others first until the very end. For some of them, until their lives were taken from them, they were others first. They thought in terms of we instead of me. What would be best for all of us? Because we are all moving together towards what Jesus has invited us into. This is not just about me. This is about us. And they made it the habit of their hearts to be grateful for what God was doing among them and the relationships they had with each other. They were grateful for how God would provide. And friends, gratitude is how we get through every season of life. This was their routine. They were present, they were generous, and they were grateful. That was their first habit. Their second habit was the narratives that they would repeat. What stories would they tell? Luke says that everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. Now you might be wondering, like I was when I read this, what does that mean? Well, later on in Acts, we actually get some really great clarity about what that means. And here's what they're talking about. There were people, non-Jewish people, they called them Gentiles. You and I would fit into that category, who were coming to know Jesus and choosing to follow Jesus, and the Jewish people were shocked by that. They were shocked by that because they didn't think that God loved them or would move in them and through them. And so they were wrestling with, what do we do with this? Because what they'd been taught was this, and what this is their box of how God works. And God was working outside of that box. And so they gathered to wrestle through what they do with this. And they shared stories about how God's Holy Spirit was transforming lives, how people were finding hope, how salvation was for everyone, and forgiveness and freedom was extended to everyone, and lives were changing. And as they're sharing these stories, Luke tells us in Acts that there was this man named James who stands up, and he begins to share some really powerful words. He says, after hearing these stories, "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God." We should not make it difficult for these people who are finding faith in Jesus. In other words, it's like he was saying, the people that we think are off limits are actually where God does some of his best work. We were convinced that what we were taught growing up, that this is how it is and this is only how it is. But God is opening our eyes to his powerful work in the lives of some people that we thought he wouldn't do any work in. And so they wanted to help them. So they gave them some specific instruction, some specific direction, some particular habits, just 3, but they would help them to live a life that honors God and live a life that honors the people of God. James is like, hey, something's happening, and we can't get in the way. And for them, it was really just about how these Gentiles were finding Jesus. It was like, we don't like them because of what they look like or because of their ethnicity. Like, this is an early form of racism. The Jewish people to the Gentiles. It had nothing to do with how these people were living or behaving. They just didn't like how they looked. And James was like, we can't live this way. We can't hold the line like this. We have to get out of the way. We have to let God move and see what he's doing and be aware of it. So what does this mean for us at Active? Well, you and I, we've talked about this often, and if you're new to Active, maybe you've heard this since you've been here. We believe that you can tell a better story no matter who you are, or where you come from, or what it is that you have been through. We believe that you can tell a better story. And sometimes the you in that better story doesn't always fit the story that we'd been taught growing up, right? Sometimes we simply need to just celebrate the work of Jesus in others, period. End of sentence. Sometimes we should just cheer on those that God is doing a good work in and stop trying to evaluate if it's the work of God or not. Because when we see transformation, when we see love overflowing from someone, when we see joy, that's the work of God, friends. And we should celebrate that and not put a lid on that. We say all the time that every number has a name, every name has a story, and every story belongs to God. This is really a moment for us to go, do we really believe that? Like, does God move in every life? Is the invitation of Jesus for every person? Maybe we haven't seen a move of God or the miraculous work of God in our lives or in our worlds because we keep getting in the way. And so may the words of James speak very loud to us. Let's stop getting in the way. We need to stop eliminating each other or categorizing one another or creating narratives that are untrue about each other and celebrate the work of God that's standing right in front of us. That is the way of Jesus, friends. And at Active, we have a choice. And our choice is, are we going to get rid of our limits or are we going to create more limits? Are we going to draw hard lines that can't be erased, that aren't godly at all? Or are we going to see and notice and be aware and celebrate the work of Jesus in every life? Here's what that looks like for us. It's us choosing beforehand to decide that we're going to build trust with those around us, that we're going to invite those around us, and we're going to tell the story of Jesus, and we're going to leave the results of that story and that work in the hands of God. And we're going to believe that God is moving even when we can't see it. We're going to believe that God is changing a heart even if we haven't experienced it yet. Like we said at Easter this last year, friends, that anything's possible, that nothing is impossible with God. And this is an invitation for us to act like it, to behave like it, to love like it. Those were the narratives. That was the story that the first church told, and that's the story we can tell. Here's the third habit, the language that they used. Luke writes it this way. He said that they were praising God and enjoying the favor of all of the people, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Language matters. And I'm not just talking about how you love Jesus but cuss a little. I'm not talking about that. It might include you, but the words we use and the way we use our words, they actually matter because what you say is a reflection of what's in your heart. Jesus put it this way. He said, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. An evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And the things that were stored up in the hearts of the first church, the first Christians, were the praises of God. To praise God is to use your words to speak about the goodness of God. You do this with us at Active often. We've even sang a song where we talk about God being a waymaker and a miracle worker and a promise keeper and a light in the darkness. That isn't just a great song that rhymes. It's actually true of God. And when we sing that, we want that to be true of what's inside of us. This isn't a religious experience or a spiritual perspective. This is a relationship with Jesus Christ that changes us. We actually believe these words. And the first Christians believed these words so much that they knew that they couldn't keep these words to themselves. And so they needed to share these words, this truth, to the world around them. And their language caught the attention of the people around them. They would ask questions like, who talks like that? Who speaks like that? Who believes like that? Maybe it went as far as them being people that would ask more questions than give answers. Maybe they were people who listened to hear instead of listening to respond. Maybe their words were thoughtful and their words were careful. And maybe that's why their words, their language, helped change hearts. What was in their hearts? It came out of their mouth. And it sounded like Jesus, which causes us to really evaluate what's happening in us. Like what's in you? What language do you use? And what language do you use when you're face to face? And what language do you use when you're screen to screen? Friends, I know you know this, but let me just put an exclamation point after your knowledge. Your words, they matter. And you can choose to use your words to prove a point, or you can provide hope. You get to choose. And so maybe what we can learn from the first church, the habit we can participate in, is that may our words and our conversations be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Because the way that you speak, the language that you use, reveals who holds your heart. This, for the first church, was the language that they would use. And then the fourth and final habit was the actions that they would take. Luke describes it this way: they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, breaking of bread, and to prayer. Like, they understood the mission. They understood the call, and they didn't keep it to themselves. They passed it along to us. Paul, later on in the New Testament, he's writing to one of the first pastors of the early church. His name is Timothy. Took over the church in the city of Ephesus at probably 21, 22 years old. The same church that John the disciple attended, the same church that Mary, the mother of Jesus, attended. Paul helped develop Timothy. And he gives him this charge in light of what we read that the first church was doing, in light of the actions they would take. He says this in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. Timothy, preach the word. Be prepared in season and out of season. Correct, rebuke, and encourage. And most Christians will stop reading there and say, that's what we should do. We should preach the word. But I love what Paul says at the end of this. He says, do this with great patience and careful instruction. And here's why. For a time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. What Paul is saying to Timothy here is, buddy, preach the word because life is hard. And preach the word that's convicting, and preach the word that's helpful, and preach the word that is encouraging, and do it. Do it with great care. Do it with great gentleness. Do it with careful instruction, because life is hard. And for many people, they're searching for hope. And in their search for hope, they're often convinced to choose things that don't bring hope at all. Hey, if you just participate in this, you'll feel better. If you just read this self-help book, you're going to be great. If you just drink this or take this or party this way or live like this, you know, you've been there, you've seen it. Maybe you've even been upset about it, or maybe you've participated in it. Here's what's interesting about our culture. Culture will bait us to the edge, invite us to jump, and then mock us when we do. And that is why Paul says to Timothy, you got to preach the word, son, and you got to do it with great patience and careful instruction. It's why we need to tell the truth. But here's what we need to know about the truth. Truth brings about hope. Hope tells the truth with gentleness and empathy. This is a reminder to us when we do preach the word, when we do tell the truth, how we should do it. Because what we say matters, and how we say it actually matters as well. Because truth is not a weapon, but a hopeful word. And the truth of Jesus Christ and what he accomplished for us in his person and his work on the cross and through the resurrection, that truth gives us right standing with God, which brings about peace. Where you have knowledge, awareness, confidence about where you stand with God. That's why Paul says, hey, keep this in mind as you're choosing to preach the word. And then he gives Timothy this great direction. He says, but you keep your head in all situations, endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, and discharge all the duties of your ministry. I love that he says, keep your head. Don't allow your emotions, your feelings to get the best of you. Predecide what kind of preacher you want to be. Predecide how it is that you're going to live. Predecide what actions you want to take. Keep your head and invite people into the peace of God through the truth of Jesus Christ. And it's why I want to talk about peace, but I specifically want to talk about grace and peace, because Paul talks often about grace and peace. In fact, he opens up every one of his letters with an introduction of grace and peace to you. And the reason why he does that is because when you receive the grace of God, you will choose to live at peace with others. Friends, the goal of truth-telling is to bring peace to those around you. Not embarrassment, not shame, not condemnation. These were the habits of the first church. These were the things that they chose to predecide to live like. They were going to follow these routines. They were going to be aware of their language. They knew that their actions, they actually mattered. They believed this, and it changed the world. And it invites us to consider, what kind of church do we want to be? And I'm convinced that we want to be the church that tells the full story of Jesus. The inviting, the irresistible, the nothing is impossible, sins forgiven, death defeated, God is with us kind of story that the first church told. So this is why you and I need to predecide what kind of church we want to be, and allow the words of Jesus and the actions of the first church to shape us and lead us. And I don't want to leave this as an ambiguous end. I want to give you some sort of direction. And so today we're introducing something called the Active 8 card. The Active 8 card is a card that you can get access to on our campus, or if you have access to our social media, you can see it there. The Active 8 card is a help to you and to me to identify the people in our life that God has strategically placed in our lives for us to love and serve and perhaps even lead into the hope that is found in Jesus. Those friends and family, familiar faces and coworkers. The card gives you a place to put down some names of people that you're praying for and you want to invest in and build trust with, and that you would hope that would come and sit with you at Active, or watch with you, or listen with you on the podcast. The Active 8 card is to give us intentional direction on how we can help people to meet Jesus and learn to follow Jesus. It causes us to think about others first. And friends, when you are others first, it changes the trajectory of people's stories. Like my friend Chloe, who was invited to Active, and everything changed for her. Here's her story.
All right, well, I'm Chloe, and I started coming to Active around October of 2021, and I've been just heard about it from a friend, and then I've been coming here ever since. Well, my friend kind of told me about Active, and just kind of the atmosphere said really energetic, just a great community to be a part of, and just, I don't know, just kind of like helping others find God in their lives. And I felt like I needed that. I've met, honestly, some of my best friends. We had Friendsgiving in November, and I actually met one of my best friends through there. And it's just been the best experience. Now I'm a youth coach for the middle school girls. Never thought I'd be serving on a team like that. My old church never had anything like that. And so it's just really nice to be able to serve and just kind of be a part of God's plan for me without even kind of knowing, but just trying to show others Jesus as well, especially middle school girls, because I know middle school can be so hard. So it's just nice that I can try and be a leader for them as well. I would say my invite here has just changed my life like completely. I would say it's done pretty much like a 180, just because like I did have God in my life, but not as deeply as I should have. And so now it's like I try and read my Bible every day. I'm more intentional with how I spend my time and like who I spend my time with. And just that first invite here was like, it honestly changed my life, because now it's like I serve on a team with my friends, and now I have special connections with other people here, not just my best friends, but everybody around. And honestly, Sundays are great. I love Sundays, they're like my favorite day of the week, as they should. But Sundays are just better with a friend. Like I always sit next to my friend or meet my friends at second service. So even Tuesdays are better with a friend as well, no matter what. Just having a friend is always great.
Chloe, thank you so much for just taking time to share that story. You are such an awesome activator, and we love having you around this team. And honestly, I'm so thankful for that initial invite that brought someone like Chloe to a place like Active.
And isn't it so true that Sundays are always better with a friend?
Yeah.
Whether you're jumping into a group, isn't it better when you show up with a friend? If you were coming to a Sunday morning for the very first time, it's always better when you know somebody. And so the thing I want to invite you to consider is, who are those 8 people in your life that maybe need your prayers and maybe need that invite to tell a better story here at Active Church? Would you consider those people? Would you write those names down? Yeah. Maybe even go on our social media account, and you're going to see 8 different boxes, and you can begin to fill in those friends for yourself and begin to pray through what it looks like for you and them to experience a better story, because better stories are better with a friend. Yeah. Can't wait for what's next for us here at Active Church. Last week, I had the privilege of sharing a little bit about where we're going as we head into this next season. And today I have another chance of sharing something else that's been on our heart, something else that God's placed in us, another dream and another vision that we have together as Active Church. What I love is, over the past 4 months here at Active Church, through our summer from May till now, what we've experienced in our Active Kids area is 710 different unique kids who have joined us on a Sunday morning. So that's not counting our Kids Blitz experience. 710 different kids who have cycled through our Active Kids experience over the past 4 years, or 4 months. And what's been so cool is that's just our Active Kids. We've had even more when it comes to our Active Youth. We've had even more when it comes to our young adults. These numbers have just been growing exponentially. And one thing that we have as a community, something that's on our heart, is that we want to continually grow young. And when I say grow young, I don't mean discount others. I don't mean forget about others. What I mean is that we want to keep creating space for our little ones, for our middle schoolers, for our high schoolers, for our young adults, to call this place home in a significant way through serving, through their engagement, through their love of this community. Because what I know is that they're going to be making some of the biggest decisions about family and life, and we want Active to be the place that they're doing it with. And so, as we dream about what's next in our community, we want to keep pouring energy and love and resource and time and attention into our Active Kids, Active Youth, and Active Young Adult. We want to do that by creating space here for them to serve. We want to do that by being thoughtful with how we create our spaces on our campus. We also want to be thoughtful with how we create events for them. And all those things require a couple things. They require people, they require your prayers, and they require resources to make those things happen. And so I want to invite you to take one step today by praying with us, and also take another step by giving with us, because your giving is actually creating space in our Active Kids environment. So 710 kids can have more space as we continually grow. I want to invite you to partner with us, because your giving is actually going to allow us to throw a young adult party. It's going to allow us to create more space for young adults to have a great time, because guess what? Young adults are in a season where they're just trying to figure out what church looks like and what family looks like. And we want to keep opening up those doors. And so would you give with us today, knowing that your giving is going to investing directly into the future of Active, the future of the kingdom of God, into the future of this world? And don't we all want this world to have an ounce of hope? And that ounce of hope can come through Jesus because of your investment today. So give with us this morning.
There are two ways that you can partner with us today. You can text the number that you see right here on the screen with the amount that you would like to give, or you can visit us online at activechurches.com. Just click the give button and you'll be set to give from there.
Active, thank you so much today for joining us. We can't wait for what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, but specifically, I cannot wait for what's happening today. If you're watching during first service, come join us for First Step. If you want more information, check us out online. We love you, Active. We'll see you soon.